Thanks for joining us on the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. How you doing? Got some great advice on how to get your books out there, and we all know that can be the hardest part, but not for everybody, so listen up. Any idea what a caddisfly is? Well, whether you do or not, you're going to find the author of our first book, Katie the Caddisfly, really interesting. Kathy Stout, welcome. You have a forestry and wildlife degree from Virginia Tech, a respiratory therapy degree. Somehow you created two products using both of those degrees. Now you're an author. But before we get there, what's a caddisfly?
A caddisfly, they are the coolest insects, I think, in the world. They are aquatic insects. They live in all different types of aquatic habitats, streams, rivers, lakes, wetlands. But the caddisfly that I've been studying lives in headwater streams in higher elevations, like in the mountainish range. And I've been in the Appalachian Mountains, for 30 years looking at caddisflies. So their purpose in the stream is they eat the bacteria and fungus that grows on the leaves and the detritus that falls into the stream. So they're actually maintaining water quality in the streams for other critters to live there. So what
spurred your interest in caddisfly?
Well, so I met my husband at Virginia Tech. He's the caddisfly guy. And I was working in his lab as a student, and I was like, what are these? Are the coolest bugs ever. I've never heard of them before. So I got involved with his research, and then we got married, and then we were the bug people.
You're the bug people. And you created jewelry out of the larva?
No. So what the caddisflies do, and they're the only aquatic insect that does this, they build a protective case around their body as a larva in the stream. So my caddisflies that I work with build with stones. And so they pick up gravel from the stream and they glue it together with the silk they produce. So it's a very sticky substance. So they build their protective case. It then becomes their cocoon. And when they emerge as an adult, they fly away. So they leave their protective case that they've just built behind.
Oh.
And so what I told my husband, I said, I bet they'll build with other stones. If they build with these little stones in the stream, I can, find some pretty gemstones. And he goes, oh, no, they won't. I go, oh, yes, they will. So I started setting up a simulated stream to rear the caddisfly larvae in and giving them gemstones to build their cases with.
Oh.
So it's beautiful, beautiful art. It's art by an insect. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
And you made a cold weather respiratory mask?
Yes, from my degree as a respiratory therapist. While my husband and I were out doing stream surveys with some kids, a gentleman was jogging and came running in, and he bent over. I thought he was having a heart attack because he was clutching his chest. So I'm going over to help him, and he goes, my lungs froze. And I went, oh, snap. I have a solution for that. And it was a filter that we use on ventilator patients in the hospital to heat and moisturize their lungs while they're on the ventilator. And it's a filter. And I said, oh, I bet that material would work in a mask. So
you're amazing. And now you've written a children's book.
Now I've written my first children's book, and I am more excited about that than anything. I'm so happy about this little book. It's so much fun.
So you explain to them everything there is to know about caddisflies.
Pretty much. I mean, I try to make it a little entertaining, but then very educational. I want them to understand what's going on in the water. So when they realize that these guys go through all these different phases, as a baby, and they have to build their pre-case out of leaves, and then they transition and build with stones to be better protected, and then they get to fly away and explore the world. It's a really unique scenario that a lot of people don't understand about these little tiny insects in an aquatic habitat. People don't think there's a lot of things that live in these little streams, but they're very, very, very productive and important. They're just very important for our stream ecosystems. and maintaining good water quality. In fact, the EPA, when they're doing stream studies, they're looking specifically at caddisflies. They want to know that the caddisflies in the stream, and that already indicates that the water quality is good and it's not been influenced by pollution in source. So,
geez, I wonder how many caddisfly we have in our rivers and streams right now.
Yeah,
that's a little scary.
Some that there's not. And that's the ones that, they're looking at, like, why aren't they here? What's going on? What plants are upstream or downstream? What's influencing the water quality? So it sparks investigation.
So Katie is the caddisfly in this book.
Yes.
And do you just take us through her development pretty much? I mean, does she have friends? Does she go on adventures?
Well, so I have multiple book ideas now. So this is Katie just kind of telling everybody kind of what's going on in the stream, and what's going on with with her group of caddisflies. So she's talking to her caddisfly buddies, and this is why we're so important, and this is what we do. And but now I want Katie to meet Stan the stonefly and Marty the mayfly, and they because stoneflies and mayflies are also very important, and the three of these insects are what we call the EPT. They're the main insects we look at for water quality. So Stan and the stonefly and the mayfly don't build cases, but they are a nymph. That's their larval stage in the water, and then they emerge as adult flies also. And it's just so cool. And when I was in college, I didn't know anything about this, but it just sparked so much interest in what is in our water. And I can't go by a river or stream without stopping.
Right. And seeing what's going on.
Looking in it.
I'm going to look up. I want to see what they look like so I can look for them now.
Yeah, they're really cool. I mean, there's so many different species. That's the thing that's so cool about caddisflies. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of different species throughout the world, and they all have specific types of cases they build. A lot of the caddisflies I'm collecting here in Maine are stick caddis, and they build with sticks instead of stones. There's other caddisflies that build with like vegetation in the bogs. There's lots of bogs up here, and there's a specific caddisfly that builds with the sometimes even needles of the pines. They'll build with those, and it looks like a little pine cone. They look like they're just a little pine cone, and that's a caddisfly.
Wow.
And so it's interesting because I even took a person out yesterday, and I'm looking down in the stream, and I'm like, okay, I see about 20 caddisflies right now. And he goes, I see nothing.
The untrained eye.
I said, it's just, you really got to train your eyes on what to look for. And I've been looking for 30 some years. So of course I'm going to be able to find him immediately. And it took him a little while. And he goes, oh, now I see him. I mean, you really have to focus on something that's, different in the stream, like a bunch of little sticks or a bunch of little stones kind of looking like they're together. That's probably a caddisfly.
Huh. Now, how are you getting this book to children? This is a great book for summer reading, the library. You could do a whole talk.
I know. I just got settled up here in Maine, and I'm now going to start going to the libraries and presenting the book. I mean, I want to get time to get out there and get into some of the libraries, nature centers. I would love to get kids out in streams. I'm just exploring the streams around here right now. So I'm trying to learn now in North Carolina and South Carolina. I got you. I know exactly where to go, but it's a little different up here. The reason why I moved to Maine is because my son and his wife are having a baby, and I'm going to be a first-time grandma.
Oh, I got it.
So I wanted to be close to them, and I was able to move, and so that's why.
Well, you could start a little caddisfly camp.
Yes,
right?
Seriously. I mean, absolutely. There's a lot of environmental education going on in Maine, more so than I found down in the Carolinas, unfortunately. But there's a lot of groups up here, and I think it would be great. I would like to get involved with some camps and just come as an instructor or something and take them out and let's do some fun hikes, look for caddisflies, and then I can bring some of my cases with me and they can make a piece of jewelry, like a necklace or a bracelet or something.
Oh man, I would sign up for that, Kathy.
Well, I used to do that for a lot of people. I mean, women's groups or groups would call me and say, hey, we want to do a fun project. We want to see if we can make some of your jewelry. And I said, absolutely. And, you know, we'd have a wine and cheese evening and we'd make jewelry. And it was fabulous fun.
So fun.
And yeah, so I'm really looking forward to doing more of that as I get more established up here. And I'm willing to travel, you know, I'm willing to travel around to get to different places. And I go to academic conferences. So the next one I'm going to is the Society of Freshwater Science. Now, these are my people.
Okay.
They all study aquatic insects. They're stream, river, lake people. And the meeting's in Puerto Rico. So
nice.
I'll have my book, and everybody's waiting, you know, for me to come there so they can get signed books.
Kathy, this was great.
Thanks.
Kathy Stout, Katie the Caddisfly. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you too.
Daniel M. Yulo has just completed his second book for Fulton. It's entitled VP Secured, the second secure novel. A CPA and a CFO in a former life, he didn't start writing until he found himself taking care of his 104-year-old dad. And with time on his hands, he decided to start writing. Daniel, these books are so involved. I mean, you know, we're talking James Bond worthy. You know what I mean? What did you base them on?
I actually was doing some internet searching for ideas for a book, and I found a couple of interesting stories about unusual events and things, and I just started to think, gee, that'd be a neat location or a neat storyline to kind of pursue and expand in a fictional type way. So that's kind of what I do.
I mean, I have to read this. The name of the guy is Anthony Starr. He has a paramilitary team of investigators. Their code name is Secure. This is their second mystery, the first mystery you write about in your first book. What was the name of that book?
The first book was called Meeting Secure.
Okay.
And it's kind of a little play on words where it's about a meeting that they have to eventually protect or save. But it's also about meeting the team. So it's kind of a little play on words.
Okay. Now, some hikers have gone missing. Dead bodies are popping up in the Shenandoah Valley. You're trying to figure out if the murders are connected to an abandoned coal mine. There's a Russian spy in the area. He committed suicide. Somebody breached a Secret Service network and stole classified information. There's a disguised man with a scar spotted entering the country at a New Jersey airport of all places. Which one? Teterboro or the one near Trenton? Newark. Oh, Newark. All right. Somebody's making encrypted satellite calls near a secret NSA surveillance site. There's something buried near an old skeleton in the Pine Barrens. Would that skeleton be from The Sopranos? Remember that episode where they took the guy out into the Pine Barrens? I mean, that put the Pine Barrens on the map, right? Why is an Asian buying used FBI vehicles and an armored limousine? I mean, this is crazy.
It all winds together and interweaves. Yes, it does. And hopefully you have to turn the next page at the end of the chapter to figure out what's happening next.
Is there another book after this one?
Actually, I just finished chapter 21 in book 3.
Oh my gosh. Who is this guy? Who's Anthony?
Well, it's Anthony Starr is the primary lead of the Secure group. But he also has a very strong female character named Rebecca Tate. The two of them are basically the same person. They both can lead. They're both very strong people, and I try to portray them that way in the story. But Anthony basically runs a private investigative firm out of Philadelphia, and he does some side jobs for the government. And he's built up this team of 10 people. 5 men, 5 women, all who have very unique skills and cross capabilities that he can call on to put into a particular situation. So he's got investigators, he's got computer people, he's got tech savvy people, he's got he's got a pilot, he's got a Navy, Marine, SEAL on his team. So they're all from military and government backgrounds, and he interplays all of his team against all these different cases. The plot starts with a coal mine, an abandoned coal mine, a real place, believe it or not, in Virginia. And the Russians have buried a suitcase nuclear bomb there.
Oh, geez.
And Anthony and his team, over the course of time, this mine has been investigated, but the Russians are watching the mine, obviously, and keeping tabs on their bomb, and that's why there are bodies popping up all over the place. So at one point, one of the secure team members worked for the FBI, and she investigated the scene. When murders occurred later in time, Stars called in because there are some unusual rifle shells, and he's got a supercomputer and tech savvy group that found out where the shells came from. So it gets involved, and it jumps from location to location, but as you read through the book, the locations all interconnect.
Who is VP?
VP is the VP, the vice president.
The vice president.
Yes.
So where is the vice president in all of this?
Towards the middle of the book, as they are following these various cases, and they realize that some of the members some of the criminals in these cases relate back to criminals from the first book.
Oh.
Okay. And you don't have to read the first book to get the second book. I do explain it all, but they are connected. So there's this criminal group they finally realize who they are. In the process, Stars asked to provide security, which is one of the things his company does, for an engineering firm in North Jersey, in Princeton.
Okay.
And because the vice president is going to make a visit there
on
one of his little tours. And Star is there with his team, and the vice president is kidnapped after a small atomic bomb that goes off from the bomb that was in the caves.
This is James Bond worthy stuff, I have to say.
It's a little entangled, but it is a quick read. So I've been told, anyway.
How did you make out with your first book? Were you out talking about it?
Oh yes, yeah. It came out in 22, and I've been to libraries and bookstores and done some book signings and met a lot of people, had a lot of fun with it.
Throughout the area? I mean, are you setting up that stuff yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing most of it myself at this point.
How are you setting your stuff up?
I'm in contact with a lot of other local authors, going to the libraries around the area, doing meet the author type events.
Okay. And you find that works for you? Because, this is the most difficult part. Everybody thinks writing the book is difficult, but most authors will tell you it's getting those author signings together,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is the hardest part.
But you seem to have mastered that. You seem to have found a way to get through, to break through that.
Well, I just keep looking for any possibility where I can jump out there and talk about my book. Had a great time in Collingswood, New Jersey at a book festival, stood outside and flashed my book at people and draw them in and talk to them, and get them interested. That's
great. That's hard for some people, Daniel.
Yes.
But you got to get behind your book. Would you agree?
Yes, definitely. One of the things you have to do is keep writing and keep pushing.
Okay. Daniel M. Yulo, VP secured the second secure novel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice talking to you.
Todd Miller Barnes writes every morning for a half hour. As a pastor early on in his career, he published articles and short stories. Then he wrote a book on coaching baseball. After years as a pharmaceutical executive, he found himself back home in Knoxville, where he has a deep well of family history to draw on. And now he's published his first book. It's entitled Heart of Coal. Todd, anybody reading this book can see your grandfather had a huge influence on you.
Very much. It's rare. It's rare enough to write a story, but it's even rarer when a story writes you. And I feel like this one did. And it's been with me, well, gosh, my whole life through my formative years and into adulthood. And I just felt like it was time. It was time to get it out of the closet and air it out and see how it formed.
Now he was a coal worker in
Hmm.
Appalachia.
Yep, sure
Yeah,
was.
yeah. Tough life, abuse, poverty, disadvantage,
Yes,
all of those
yeah.
things.
Father was a inveterate alcoholic and a moonshiner. And in the story, he is removed from that home. That part of the story is true. He witnessed his new stepmother uh, attempting to murder his younger brother.
Oh, geez.
So he disarmed her and did a little more than that. I'm afraid he beat her half to death. But his uncles that lived in that area uh, redeemed him, really. The one was the attorney, the district attorney. One owned the bank. One was the school superintendent, and one was a doctor. And then his brother or his father was the drunk.
Oh,
So
geez.
they took him in and uh, really gave him a great education without the certification of formal schooling. So he was really a self-made man in many, many ways. So it was privileged to write about it.
And tell me what's at the heart of this.
At the heart of it is really redemption and forgiveness and resilience. Those three things. Um, we aren't necessarily in charge of the cards that are dealt to us, but we certainly have a say in how they're played. And he is that personified, or was that. I'd say about 70% of this story is nonfiction, but the 30% that gives it a lot of imagery and flower is fiction. So it's presented as fiction.
Okay, so Wani worked in the coal mines. Did something happen there? Like,
Yeah, his uncles decided, and this is true part, prior to the Great Depression and the stock market crash, they were very wealthy. They decided to cash in everything and move from Eastern Tennessee to Arizona and begin cattle ranching. And they did so. And he felt a real burden to stay with the people in the region, disadvantaged people. He really had an identity with them, and he had an identity with miners. So he pastored a church, but he was self supporting. So he worked in the mines all those years and really felt a call to do so. And then in the late 40s, early 50s, mining began to slow down a little as auto industry was really taking over in manufacturing era sector. So he moved north. He moved to Michigan and finished up as as an assembly line worker for Ford Motor Company.
so he was one of these people no one had very high expectations of.
Correct. Yeah,
Your character.
correct.
And you compare it to Kill a
Hmm.
Mockingbird and Hillbilly Elegy. Where do you draw that comparison?
The drug use in Hillbilly Elegy was alcohol in the 20s and 30s. I mean, it was rampant. There are still counties, believe it or not, in Tennessee that are dry. You can't purchase alcohol in them. And it's a remnant of that era when so many lives were ravaged by excess of it. And then th- that abuse that just goes hand in hand with that was not only impacted his life, but scores of others in that area in that region, and it still does to this day. But it's more drug use. So that's the Hillbilly Elegy, the family dysfunction, the discord in the community because of drug use. And then To Kill a Mockingbird, there are so many social issues that are touched upon in this book, primarily um, the poverty and how that impacts people, how that makes them behave, the uh, the wretched situation people find themselves in. It lends itself to them behaving badly. So in that regard, having some character and nobility and the ability to navigate between that Scylla and Charybdis, so to speak, of poverty and abuse and lack, and how do you come out of that with a character, and how do you come out of that with some kind of a noble goal in mind and maintain your integrity? That's really where that comparison's drawn.
Interesting. Are you out talking about your book?
The local library, is going to have me come in and speak about it.
That's
There's
great.
Yeah, they purchased the book, so it's in the library. The Tennessee Library Association has also reached out, so I think they're going to get it as well. It has a lot of resonance here. I think people resonate with this story because of the coal mining background, but also because they relate to that story. So many people have reached out to me personally and just said, wow, this is my grandfather's story. This is my great uncle's story. This is my dad's story. And I really didn't expect that, but there was a lot more of that than I had given credence to. So that's happening. I think the local television, two of the local television stations are going to interview me as well. So it's getting some traction.
Nice.
Yeah, it sold about 200 copies in the first 2 weeks. So yeah, so I'm pleased, excited.
I suspect you're going to keep writing, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I've got another book in the works. So yeah, it's fun.
You going to stick with your family or?
No. This next one's purely fictional account of a man who knows he's dying, but he wants one last adventure with his two oldest sons who have just recently gotten out of the military, and they go up to the boundary waters in northern Minnesota and uncover a plot of some people who have crept into the country via the Canadian waters who are up to no good. And it's called Word of the Day because this dad every day begins the day with some obscure word like Scytherism and then gives the definition, and they think he's off his rocker, but every day he does that. And in the end, he does die naturally. Fortunately, he's not killed. And he carries this black book with him, and he speaks these words out of it every day. And they open the book, and it's blank.
Oh.
So all this was just in his head this whole time. So that's the premise for the story anyway.
Nice, Todd. Looking forward to that. All right. Todd Miller Barnes, Heart of Coal. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
It was my pleasure.
I think it's safe to say the current state of America's political parties inspired Stephen G. Erick to pen Fixing the Republican Party, applying the lessons learned from our mistakes. Stephen, this book is a world away from your work as a nuclear submarine captain and building nuclear power plants.
No. Actually, it had to do with frustration while listening to the 2024 presidential campaign and how each of the parties acted during the campaign. Listening to all the drivel put out by their political ads, their failure to take any responsibility for mistakes made, and the constant accusing of the other party of wanting to destroy the country, it was kind of clear to me that the two major parties were being controlled by the most extreme element of each party, and that their agendas didn't really reflect the wishes of the majority of the party members. So I decided to apply my experience in identifying and analyzing the mistakes of each party and developing a list of the lessons we should learn from the mistakes both parties were making during that election. Then I developed a plan to refine these lessons by the party members and hold our candidates accountable to them. Then I proposed what I would at least consider a straightforward way of allowing party members to ask questions of their candidates in real time and to get real-time responses.
Well, are they going to answer honestly?
Yeah, well, one of the tenets of that system would have been every answer that you're given you have an evidentiary or fact hyperlink that goes with it. And that's sent back to the person who actually asked the question so they can look at what you're basing your answer on.
So give me an example of what I'll find in this book.
Okay. The first section of it is going to it has to do with the specific lessons learned from the January 6th report. I used it because it was actually applies to both parties. They kind of wrote it in terms of the Republican Party and of Donald Trump. But if you read through all of the lessons to be learned, you can apply it to either party. So my first phase of the book, I actually went through the January 6th report in its entirety. And I highlighted those areas that I thought were the most important things for a political party to learn.
For example?
Well, let's see. One of the lessons would have been take your message to your opponent's supporters, be strategic, think risk versus reward.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if you're going to bring some thoughts to a group of people, you've got two choices. You can take it to your supporters, or you can take it to the opposition. If you take it to your supporters, you've got only really two outcomes. You'll either keep them or you'll lose them. And if you take it to your opposition, you've only got two outcomes. You're going to lose them or you're going to gain them. So there's only one. The best way of taking your message out to the voters is to go talk with the guys on the other side. Because if my supposition is right, in that most of the people associated with political parties really hold centrist views and are reasonably open-minded, then that's where you make your big gains, is there.
So how did we get here, right? I guess that's the question. Because wouldn't you say the majority of Americans are center?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And in fact, if you read the Gallup poll done in 2023, they went out and asked the question, in politics as of today, do you consider yourself a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent? How do you think the vote came out?
Independent.
Well, 27% said they were Republican. 27% said they were Democrat. 43% said they were independent.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah. I'm looking there at, all right, what is the population that you could conceivably influence? Number one is the independents. You're 27% for a particular party. So you're up to 70% now. And then probably half of the other party, because let's say that half of the Republicans are MAGA Republicans, and you'll never convince them of anything. I mean, literally the sky could be falling on them and they'd say, what sky?
Yeah.
So,
okay.
But you're sitting there now with being able to influence 83% of the population. But you've got to know what that 83% wants out of their government. And so my whole philosophy of the book is, well, why don't we just ask them?
Well, I think that's where the Democrats screwed up, right?
Yeah.
They were not paying attention to, I need to be able to put food on my table. I need childcare. You know, there's a list of things, and Democrats were too focused on everything but what really mattered to voters. And I think that there were a lot of promises made on the Republican side saying, well, we're going to fix this and we're going to fix that. And this thought that a lot of things that Donald Trump was saying he wasn't going to follow through on. And, you know, here we are.
Yeah.
So what do you think, what's the most important thing we can do moving forward?
Well, I actually put out a method in the book. And my method was kind of a nationwide type of method where you go and you identify centrist people from the Republican, Democratic, and independent groups and bring them all together. You give them a list. I put down the 10 tenets of a political party. Basically, it had to do with, what do you want out of your candidate? Because you could talk about specific issues, but the issues change all the time. And so if you really want to fix the government, you've got to have people of character in the positions rather than having characters in the position, which is what we have now. So I gave them, I would have given this group 10 thoughts to act as kind of a seed for discussion, and then let them tell me, this is what we think ought to be a part of who we vote for's abilities, his performance. And I've been thinking about this for ages now. And that's probably not a particularly effective way to go. I think you need to get down more to the local grassroots. So I actually I found a group that is actually trying to do that.
In your community?
Well, it's nationwide, but they're focusing on local or at the most statewide issues.
Okay.
Okay, and they appeal to centrists. And I thought, wow, that's pretty.
What's the name of the group?
The name of the group is called Centered America.
Centered America. Good name.
Yeah.
Are you a spokesperson for them?
Well, I actually wrote an article. They published their what they call their survival plan, I think.
Okay.
And it was basically, this is how they operated. These were the basic tenets of how they operate. Well, I sent them a long email response, and I said, maybe you ought to look at this area, maybe change this. And I gave them reasons why. Well, they got back to me the same day and said, wow, thanks for the input. Says they're talking over amongst themselves. Why don't you keep writing articles?
Great.
And I said, okay. So I wrote one over the weekend, and I'm going to probably do another one here today or tomorrow.
Now, do you mention your book in these articles?
I mentioned it if people want to get further into it. I haven't really gotten into the specifics of it, no.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like, you should get some credit. If you're writing these articles, that's one way to really get your book out there.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I mentioned it in the first article. I haven't really emphasized it that much.
Okay.
But in the second one, when I get down to more of the state and local levels, I'm going to actually cite portions of it.
Honestly, I wish you the best of luck, Stephen. I think we need more of this.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. The normal people of the country need to take over, and it's so funny. I mentioned that in the book as one of the factors that's going to hold everything back on this is that the press doesn't like normal.
No,
the press they love the extreme. They love the unusual. And so my thought was, okay, let's give them something unusual. Let's publicly call this a coup against the political parties of the United States and say, you're welcome to cover it if you'd like.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Stephen G. Erick, Fixing the Republican Party, applying the lessons learned from our mistakes. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
A retired architect who loves to cook, entertain, and write books, Thomas H. Carroll IV has taken all of his favorite recipes that he can gather and put them in one place. The name of his book, Simple Southern Recipes from Mother to Son, and more, right?
Yes. They're from my mom, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother.
Do you give us a little story behind every recipe?
Not every recipe, but groups of recipes. What happens is there are things called family moments in the book, and it kind of explains how I grew up and what the significance of family is and eating at the dining room table together, the lessons that we learn from that, and the history of the family that you learn while you're gathered at the family tables and the holidays. Like in the book, it says basically my favorite holidays was Mother's Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, because those were the largest holidays. Of course, in most families they are.
Right.
But for me, it was more significant because before each one of those holidays, maybe 2 to 3 weeks prior, I was at my great grandmother's house stirring some bowl, making, cakes, making cookies, making pies, making dressing, and the lessons that you learn about the history. And I wondered one day while I was stirring this big old bowl, because my great grandmother, she was poor, I guess you could call it poor, but she would make thousands of cookies for all of her children, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, her great-great-grandchildren, and she would mail them out because she couldn't afford to buy gifts for all of these kids,
Jeez.
But she wanted them to have stuff from her, so she would make thousands of cookies. And so I would be there helping her make these cookies. And a revelation came to me one day, was like, wait a minute. Why am I the only person here making these cookies? My cousins, where are they? And it's so funny because since the book has been out, of course, my family members, my cousins have bought these books, and they're like, "We are so sorry," but the cookies were delicious.
What kind of cookies were they? Like what's special?
There's two that my great grandmother used to make and send out for Christmas all the time, and they're called sand tarts, and they're in the book, and Russian rock cookies. And I still, some traditions, some things you want to stop, because I never had any intentions of carrying on the tradition of making all these cookies and sending them out to people. Even as of last Christmas, I probably made about 3,000 or more.
I can't even imagine.
And you start mailing them out. And it's not only cookies. I have to do pound cakes. A lot of my family still requests pecan pies and sweet potato pies because they're so. My great grandmother started that mess. And now I still have to send these people. Of course, now they'll pay for it, at least for the shipping of it, or they'll come. I have a cousin who drives. I live outside of San Antonio. I have a cousin from Dallas. He orders about 25 pies, and he asked me, "What day can I come pick him up?" Every year, and I've been back in San Antonio for 10 years. Every year he drives down, he gets them, and he takes them back to Dallas.
You must have a huge kitchen.
I do have a nice kitchen, and I have 3 ovens.
Wow. And these cookies, 3,000 cookies, what kind of cookies are they?
They're called sand tart cookies.
What's a sand tart?
A sand tart, you may be familiar, a lot of people, especially in Texas, are familiar with what they call a wedding cookie.
Okay.
Because it's the last thing you do is roll it or shake it in powdered sugar.
Okay.
So it's real sweet. And I tell people, if you're on a diet, don't cook anything in this cookbook, because this is a fattening cookbook. And those particular cookies, I tell the guys at the gym, because they absolutely love them. One, you'll have to work out 3 days to get that one cookie off of you, because they're pure butter. They're butter and sugar, basically.
Yeah. Do they have pecans in them?
Pecans in them. Mm-hmm.
Okay, pecan sandies. I make them every year.
They're kind of like the inside of them are kind of like pecan sandies, and then you roll them in powdered sugar.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot of recipe books out there. What sets yours apart?
I think the stories in the book set mine apart, because I didn't want it to be just a simple cookbook that you flip back and forth with. I think if you take time to read the stories in there, they'll resonate with people, to go back to that home life, teaching our kids table etiquettes. Teaching our kids it's okay to have real friends and not Facebook friends. The respect that we have for our elderly and your next door neighbor. It's okay to talk to your neighbor and not walk across the street from them. We've lost so much of that. And so I think the book highlights some of those things, in it, and people will really enjoy reading it.
Where are you going to share these recipes? Where are you talking about your book?
Well, I've been invited to several book signings. The library here in the San Antonio areas, they have what they call, they feature local authors. And so I go to those. We have different types of shows in the area, like flea markets and things like that. And I go sell them at that. I've been invited to go to college campuses down here and talk about, my life and cooking and things like that. I had the opportunity to go to a cafe. It's like a coffee cafe. And I did samples of 2 or 3 of the dishes. Peach cobbler. Let's see, what did we do? I did peach cobbler for dessert and pound cake. And then for the entrees, I did what's called an Alaskan baked salmon over rice. And then I did, it was over wild rice. And then I did simply pinto beans with meat in it, beef in it, and then put that over white rice.
Oh.
They absolutely loved it. But that it's a difference nowadays than it used to be, because a lot of people don't cook nowadays.
Yeah.
They claim they want to know how to cook, And some of these recipes are so simple. So, and I try to talk to the guys at the gym because economically, they spend so much money and they don't realize the $100 because it's costing you $20 a day for lunch, and then
Right.
you're spending another $25 to $30 for dinner. You could take that money, go to the store, buy the ingredients, and you'd have for a month or two. But they just don't understand that. They'd rather go to Chick-fil-A, they'd rather go to McDonald's, they'd rather go to, and I'm like, God, y'all waste a lot of money. A lot of
Yeah.
money.
And it's fattening and there's preservatives too, right?
Yes. And then I also try to teach them. I do cooking lessons,
That's great.
which is a lot of fun. I've done maybe 3 for ladies groups that have invited me to come out and show them how to do different dishes, and I've had about 2 for guys. And I do the homemade barbecue sauce because guys say, I can make a barbecue. Okay, let me show you how to make real barbecue sauce from scratch. Not this stuff that's sitting on the shelf.
You must be pretty well known if you're getting invited. Nobody gets invited. I talk to authors, all day long, and they would love to be invited somewhere.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have a social network. I'll put it that way between people in 2 or 3 different churches, that I know, my
Okay.
fraternity brothers and their wives, and other sororities that been to my house. And I was telling one of my good friends, he actually lives in D.C. And he said, "Well, how is your social like there?" I said, "Oh, it's wonderful. It's about the same as it was in D.C." And he said, "So what you're telling me is nobody will invite you over for dinner now there either, right?" I said, "Never. I never invited for dinner because the wives always say, 'I'm not cooking for him. He's a chef.' And so they'll come to my house for dinner, but I'm never, or they'll take me out to dinner, but they never invite me to their home where they cook."
That is a wonderful problem to have.
It really is.
All right. Thomas H. Carroll IV.
Yes.
Simple Southern recipes from mother to son. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mary Diggs writes about bullying. It's a topic she's extremely invested in. She's written 2 books on the subject. She self-published her first book entitled Spirit Keeper Identity and then decided to publish with Page for her second. It is entitled Spirit Keeper 2, Exoneration. Mary, when did this journey begin?
Well, I started writing after I was bullied, and it was kind of a release. I wrote and painted. So
When were you bullied? As a
and
child?
I was bullied as a child. Yes, it was school bullying,
Okay.
and it was very painful because near the end of it, she attacked me on my porch. So I was kind of fearful, and so I try to put all of those elements in my book, but not, exactly what happened.
Okay. What did you end up doing for a living?
I taught for 31 years at my home school.
That's great. And then when did you start publishing books?
I started publishing near the end of my career. I didn't have time to do anything until after I finished teaching.
Okay. So tell me about Spirit Keeper. Tell me about your main character.
My main character is a very extraordinary young woman who was born with a port wine stain. So, that can start a lot of body shaming. But she never had problems with it until after she was kidnapped and at the age of 7. But she was discovered to be a child prodigy for art. Most of my characters have my things that I do.
Okay.
I transfer them to my characters. So,
Okay.
and it's my story has 2 point of views, one from her and one from her protector. Her blood gives her the power to be in this secret order of truth finders. They're called truth seekers, and also spirit keepers. So they have 3 names she goes under, but it's secret.
Give me her full name. She's got a beautiful full name.
Oh, yes. Abby Jalonge Berthe Manning.
That's gorgeous. So she's a young girl, and what's going on with her? She was kidnapped.
And because of her port wine stain, the person who kidnapped her did not know that she could be a commodity. So he separated her from the other. It was trafficking. And she was separated from the others and put in a dark, dark place.
Well, she was taken from New York to Texas, and she was not forced into human trafficking, you're saying?
He didn't, he was going to sell her, just give her off to a cult. He
Oh,
was a member of a cult. But she got free, but that's the main reason for her PTSD was that she was saved, but not saved, in other words. But it did help her to go on. But her parents moved from New York and came to Texas because of them not being able to catch him. He was a very elusive guy, just vanished whenever he wished.
so who's this Kenton Leon Baker?
Okay, Kenton Leon Baker is her protector. You know, I think from the premises that God prepares us for what we need. And he was put in her life because she needed a protector and because of the Verity book. Verity book is the book of her family back in France. And that's how she's in the secret order. And his name appears in the book, but it's not just written out, Kent, but it's the meaning of his name.
Now, she's part of a group called the Art of Saving One.
She created that. That's my organization. That is my advocacy. The Art of Saving One is just the art of changing a situation of bullying. How do we do it?
Right.
And I find knowledge is very powerful. I do presentations of my advocacy. I just did one last month. So it's I talk to young people because that's where we should start getting people prepared. And I also talked from Luke 6:31, which says, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." And that's my premise. I don't work from any other place but from love and learning how to treat people. You know, sometimes it gets lost in kids who are, well, they just go on their emotions, but they have to learn how to curb it.
Right. Now, tell me about this disgraced spirit girl named Bethany.
Oh, Bethany's cute. She died no one knows how. Well, the town may know, but they keep it silent. No one mentions anything about her death. They only have a bad reputation put out about her being taken. Well, she went along with this guy and just left home because of her father, who was misusing her, mistreating her or something. They left that connotation. But she wants to come back and clear that and to let her father know the truth. And that's where a spirit keeper comes in to speak for her.
And the whole, premise is to clean the town of its corrupt secrets, enhanced by drug and sex trafficking cult. And you talk about a fourth trial.
The cult requires that Abby goes through 3 trials, and they're very, like being kidnapped. Then there are 2 others before she reached the age of 18. After she reached the age of 18, she is ready to face the final trial, which is the 4th one. It's an exoneration trial because of something that the Duke did way back over 100 years ago.
Wow.
So by her finding all this information to help her spirit, then she's able to face that trial. And the trial is based on truly using your faith.
Okay. Okay.
And she and Kent has to do that together.
Now, when you go out to talk about bullying and your anti-bullying initiatives, are you able to tie in your books?
I do. Yes, very much. I tie in my books and my art because the art of saving one, I tell kids that, if you want to express yourself, sometimes to talk to your parents, it's hard, but if you can put a picture on it,
Right.
then they'll be able to see what you're going through and be very serious about it. Don't play with it, but do it from your heart.
Right. Does whatever money you make go back to these initiatives?
Yes, I am trying to work for a scholarship. I've been, uh, I give money, but most of the time it's just knowledge to parents who they come to me and say, "Well, my child is being bullied. What can I do?" Well, I'm not a professional at telling people what they can do, but I can give them some experiences that I've had, and by doing research, I can tell them where to go, and they can read as I do.
And I suspect there will be more books.
Yes, I have one already in the making.
Is it a follow-up to Spirit Keeper too?
It is. It is. It's the aftermath. It's not she's really free, so free from the order. And now we have to find out what's going to happen in our life.
Wow, Mary, this is something else.
Well, thank you so much.
Mary Diggs, author of Spirit Keeper 2, Exoneration. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It was pleasant.
Noella Miller is a young woman working for a social media company, and she really wanted to make the list of her niece and nephew's favorite books, so she wrote one. It is a children's book entitled The ABCs of Affirmations. Now, to be clear, you've been writing for some time, right?
Technically, I started writing about almost 10 years ago, but if I wanted to be like strategic about it, I literally started writing ever since I was told to start writing in school.
Right.
So I got the inspiration from that, basically from my dad and my teacher. When we had to do assigned projects, writing projects, and I hated writing at first, but my dad used to help me and sit me down and help. He would sometimes even write the entire essay for me. And I think that's what got me into learning how to compose written words and having a way with words and writing them.
Because he showed you how difficult it is.
Yeah.
Right? Writing is rewriting, right?
Yeah.
So the ABCs of affirmations, where did that come from?
Well, that originally came from my sister-in-law, actually. I remember going into my niece and nephew's room while she was cleaning them, and she had their books on display, like their favorite books. And I jokingly was like, "So when is my book going to be up there?" And she put the fire under me and was like, "As soon as you write it." And literally, I couldn't even thank her any more than what she's done for that.
Was your inspiration other children's books?
It was other children's books. The title itself and the synopsis of the book itself also did come from her. We were talking about possibly writing a children's book because of that scenario. And she was just like something like the ABCs of affirmations, like something that would be positive for kids. And then I think that was quite literally what sparked it all.
So did you write this book together?
No, she just gave me the idea. She didn't want anything to do with it. She was just like, "Here, that's it." But I wrote it within about a 30-minute time frame. One morning at like 5 a.m., just woke up and I just had the inspiration and the dedication to actually sit down and write it.
What are these affirmations?
These affirmations are basically, they correlate with the alphabet. They're just positive words that I feel that I also needed as well as a kid, that helped with my confidence and development. And I feel like it's not also just for kids, because I feel like because it affected me while writing it and while reciting them sometimes, I feel like it's also beneficial for adults, youth, any age really, but I feel like it starts with children. And while they're learning their alphabet, I feel like why not learn positive words that correlate to each letter?
Okay, so give me some examples.
For one, I distinctively remember R being for radiance or radiance. I feel like that's my favorite one because that's not a word that I would typically use as a little kid. And I feel like it's a compliment that's not only just for myself, but to see it in someone else as well, so that I can be able to say, oh, you're very radiant. I like your positive attitude. I like how you shine and how expressive you are.
So, with each word, is there an explanation of what that word means?
Yes, I last minute, but it was very important for me to add a glossary in the back of the book. And quick situation. I actually did a photo shoot for the book with my niece and nephew. And that was the first time my niece, which is about to be 10 next month, was the first time she ever heard or saw the book. And when she got to one of the letters that correlated with her name, J, it was for jovial, and she didn't understand what it meant. So I told her to look into the back of the book and check the glossary. And she found the glossary and she understood what it meant while she read the definition. So I felt like that was very much important. Z, I can remember Z is for zeal.
What'd you do with X? X is really a tough one.
Yes, that was very much the one that I had to sit there. X and Q, actually. Well, funny enough, I think now it was X Factor.
What about Q? So, you found Q tough, huh?
It was quite tough because I was trying to figure out what name or what word should go for it, but then I also had to think about the illustration and how that would be depicted and if they can understand what that is. And that's why I ended up doing the glossary as well, so that it's just like, okay, I get more, it's more of an insight. But for Q is quick-witted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, are you able to share this book?
Currently, yes. I'm working with Fulton Books to do the publishing. I'm also waiting until I have all of my pictures ready so that I can make a grand post on my personal page. And I also have family and friends that are willing to share and put the word out. But I also was thinking about sharing it to schools, probably my old school, see how they work with it and how well they handle it or how well it's relates to the children there. And also into nurses' office and pediatric rooms and psychiatry rooms, occupational therapist rooms, and all of that.
Oh my gosh, that sounds great. You sound so excited about it.
Yes, I very much am.
Is there another book after this?
I'm thinking about it. I wouldn't hold anything not. I wouldn't say no. But I am possibly thinking about it. I was thinking about making it into a series, but I'm not sure yet.
Okay. Is there a copy of your book in your sister's kids' room?
Not yet. I actually wanted to wait until my niece's birthday, which is 5 days after mine next month.
Okay.
So she can be, because she's the older one of the two, or the three actually. So she's going to be the most excited about it. And I can't wait to give it to her because I had her in mind specifically while writing these words too.
Oh, that's great. You're such a good aunt.
I try.
Noella Miller, author of The ABCs of Affirmations. Thanks so much for talking to me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Grandkids do the darndest things, and in Maida Surdyk's case, she was motivated to write for the very first time and publish Sam and the Red Light. So what is it about your grandson that inspires you?
His imaginary make-believe world. It was like we were just outside playing one day and I'm like, I gotta write this stuff down.
What was he doing?
That particular time we were outside and he's got a slide, like a little Tykes or whatever slide. And he pretended that was his pirate ship and he was a pirate. And so, we were playing pirates and I'm like, I gotta write this stuff down.
And you immediately jump in and become a character in his little imaginary play.
I did. I did. So we're always playing in his make-believe world. His imagination's just running wild. And it's like, I got to write this stuff down.
Okay. So what did you come up with?
It's just a book about Sam and his grandma take a walk to the ice cream shop, and he shows her all about what he knows about street safety along the way.
What does he know about street safety? How does he learn it?
Some of it his mom has taught him when they walk to the park. Some of it is what his dad teaches him.
Okay.
And so he just shows grandma as they walk to the park.
Tell me what he shows you.
The different ways to cross the street, with a stoplight, a stop sign, and then the little box that either shows a person walking or the hand.
Okay. Does he explain to you what the hand means, what the light means?
He does. So he says, see that hand? That means stop. When it changes to a man walking, then we can cross the street. At one point, they catch a glimpse of Grampy and his train driving by. He waves at Grampy. Grampy blows the train horn at him. And then when the train goes by, they continue on down the sidewalk, and he pretends to be Grampy driving his train.
Does he do like the woo-woo?
He does. He does. He does the woo-woo. He goes, Grandma, look, I'm Grampy driving his train.
Does Grampy really drive a train?
He does.
That's so cool.
He does. And I sent in a picture to the publisher of Grampy's train. Now, I did ask the publisher to take off the logo off the side of the train, because I'm not sure, trademarks, copyrights, whatever, if I published that, if I would get in trouble.
So what else do we see along the way?
We see different ways to cross the street, and it's a hot summer day, so Sam's kind of dragging his feet every so often, and Grandma has to keep urging him to keep going. He's like, how much farther, Grandma? He's just dragging his feet, and Grandma has to keep urging him. And then at the end of it, Grandma is the one that slows things down at the end, and he has to urge her. But the hot summer day is most of the conflict. But it centers mostly on him showing Grandma the proper way to cross the streets.
And showing Grandma how smart he is.
Yes.
Now, are you in a position to read this book to other kids?
I'm going to a couple book fairs. There's one next month, one in August, and then I'm applying to go to another one. I believe it's in November.
Where are these book fairs?
One is in Newark, Ohio. One is in Radnor, Ohio, and the other one is in Worcester, Ohio.
Yeah. How did you find out about them?
I took my books to a bookstore,
Mm-hmm.
and so that she could put them on a shelf. She said, if they sell good, then we'll order more. But she's the one that actually told me about it. And she contacted me, or the person from the Newark Book Fair contacted me. And then she's the one that gave me the links for all the other ones.
That's really good to know that these book fairs are out there.
Yes. What I'm gathering is that there's over 100 authors. We're all sitting there. And have you ever been to a craft show?
I have.
A craft fair?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of like that, only with books and authors instead of crafts.
Okay.
So we all sit there at a booth, and we have our book or books, and people come through. And if, we have one on display that they can look at, and if they want to buy it, then they can buy it.
Right. And they just start up a conversation with you about your book.
Correct.
And
Correct.
your process and all of that.
Correct.
Would this bookstore lady let you do a signing in her place?
She might, yeah.
I mean, she has your books. Why
Right.
wouldn't she let you come in
Right.
and talk?
Right.
And sign them?
Yes. That would be
Yeah.
cool. That would be really
Yeah.
awesome.
Do they do, in the summertime, do they have any summer reading for little kids where you could go in and read?
That I don't know, but I have thought about contacting my local library and doing a story time. Like they have story time with the kids.
Oh, that
come in.
would be nice.
Yeah.
Was it easy to sit down and write once you made the decision?
Actually, it was a whole lot easier than I thought it was going to be.
Really?
Because I'm more partial to fantasy books. Like Terry Brooks is my favorite author, and he writes novels. And I'm sitting and I'm like, I can't write like that. I can't do it. But I just I knew what I wanted the story to say.
Right.
Like I knew the plot, so I just filled in the extras around it. So I knew I wanted Sam to show Grandma what he knows about street safety and crossing the streets. And so I just filled in, okay, if he's showing her how to cross the streets, then obviously we have to be walking outside. Okay, so now where are we going to walk to? All right, it's a hot summer day. What goes better with children and hot summer days than ice cream? So let's walk to the ice cream shop. And then I just filled in the conversation around it. So it actually turned out a lot easier than what I expected.
Right. Right. No wonder you want to keep writing.
Yeah.
Have you read this book to Sam?
I have not yet, but his mother has. And Sam said he likes it.
Is Sam close to you?
He is not. He lives about an hour and a half away, but he comes up on the weekends.
That's great. And he's inspired you beyond words.
Oh, very much.
Are you going to keep writing children's books?
I am. I've got a couple more in mind that I'm working on. And then it's just his imagination. I can't keep up with his imagination. So I just take from the things that we play together and go from that.
So you just keep taking notes on Sam.
Correct.
That's really cute.
That's the way I do it.
It's given you a whole new purpose.
It has.
All right.
It has.
So Maida Surdyk, Sam and the Red Light. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Gary Gardner enjoys writing, period. He's written for years in all kinds of genres. The Beacon is his second published book, his first with Paige, and you decided to go sci-fi.
I've always loved science fiction, whether it be books or movies. I got tired of watching these sci-fi movies where there's always a bad guy trying to kill aliens or aliens trying to conquer the world, and this and that. And even the silly children's stories are all, everybody's after the alien, and I'm not saying that I don't agree, but I thought it would be different if aliens weren't necessarily evil. They just have the temperament of humans. They can go either way. And, so I figured, okay, the Beacon, it sounds kind of nice. I had to put that there because all these years no one actually showed. And all of a sudden they did. I had to have a reason. And it keeps other planets from entering the galaxy and into Earth.
Okay.
It's basically telling them, listen, Earth is primitive. You don't want to mess with that. Even if you crash land there, we can't help you. It's off limits.
What's it look like?
I have absolutely no idea. There's no explanation in the book. It's a beacon, everybody always thinks of beacon as something that is put, in rivers or whatever.
Like a lighthouse.
But it transmits the information to ships.
Okay. In your story, a ship gets through the beacon and crashes in Virginia.
Yes.
So what happens?
There was a man who was in his residency in New York for a doctor. His father got ill, so he moved back to Virginia to work on his farm. After his father passed away, he stayed there. And one night driving home from town, he found something in the road, and it turned out, as you find out, that it was an alien. And he wasn't quite sure what to do with it, so he took it to his house, since he was basically a doctor, took care of his injuries, and then the next day, the alien left. But before the alien left, nonchalantly, he said, would you be willing to help out if something like this ever happened again? And the doctor said yes, not knowing quite what he was agreeing to.
What did the alien look like?
Humanoid form. And it's even explained in the book that all aliens, aliens don't have horns and don't have this and, so on.
Okay. They look like us.
Yeah, we don't have any reference here on Earth. We just make them monsters, of course.
Right.
And the captain, or the one that was hurt originally, was a captain of a ship. It's sort of like the Coast Guard. They patrol the galaxies in case other ships crash somewhere else.
Oh, okay.
And so now that Earth is available, helps because you figure a lot of these planets aren't, aren't safe, or they really can't be habitable to anybody.
Right.
So if they crash there, more than likely they're not going to be saved. Earth is in a perfect position for this.
Okay.
This doctor, all of a sudden, he's in a situation to where he has people coming to Earth, either crash landing or this or that, and they need help. And he has to learn their ways, of course. And he has to try to keep himself safe, plus them, in waiting for someone to pick them up. And not all of them are good guys, of course. Some of them, he does have conflicts along the way. And also, it's not like he can go around and tell people, oh, guess what I do for a part-time job.
Right. Now, the aliens don't necessarily want anything from us, from Earth. They're just accidentally crashing.
They either crash, or if they need help in some form, yes, they make it to Earth.
Okay. Okay. Do we find out what happens to the doctor?
Oh, yes. I wrap it up. Actually, I am on part 2. I'm about halfway through. It's easy to make a sequel of because it's an interesting concept. All of a sudden, you're in your house and there's a knock on the door and there's somebody from God knows where, what planet. And all of a sudden, he's asking for help until, a ship can come by and pick him up.
It could be a series. A new alien shows up every week.
It could. I mean, it really could, because you can go any direction you want to go in.
You're funny. Okay. So are you out talking about your book?
Oh, yeah. I love it. I did a couple libraries. I went to a couple of the small fairs. I'm trying to get the word out.
All right. And you're going to keep writing?
Oh, yes, most definitely.
Are you going to stick with Paige?
At the moment, yes. I'm satisfied with what you're doing.
Yeah. Did it work out better for you this time than it did the first time?
Oh, the first time was horrible. In a way that I had this thing published in December. February, the pandemic hit.
Oh, boy.
I didn't go anywhere. I mean, the book, I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't talk to anybody. Nothing. It was just horrible for 2 years, and that's why I decided to put this one out in hopes that it could, kickstart the first one as well.
Okay. All right. So one thing we're going to do is I'm going to edit this down. You're going to be on the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable podcast with some other authors. And then you can ask for an edited version of this interview. And you can put that in an email blast or use it on your social media.
That's great.
All right. Thank you, Gary Gardner, author of The Beacon.
Well, thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.